when I was in university and I came across just regular stocks. It was kind of penny stocks at the time. There wasn't, this whole YouTube space and all the influencers and even the prop firms wasn't something that was really about. Before I entered the prop space, actually, I managed to build up some personal capital to a decent amount. Managed to, help my family out, pay off the last bit of my parents' mortgage. I think the first book I read is called Technical Analysis for Dummies. This very basic book, but it gives information that's still true today. So I very much learned myself just through trial and error and making lots and lots of mistakes. So basically it's quite simple. What I'll do is I'll go and draw up key areas of liquidity, of buyers fighting sellers, and then where the price breaks in one direction or another.
Hi, it's Pep from Alpha Capital Group with another Traders Interview. This week we have Josh, who is a six-figure funded trader and has had over 20K in payouts with ACG. Josh, welcome to the interview. If you just give me a little bit of your background, your journey so far, that'll be a great starting point.
Thank you, Pep. So I'm Josh. So I've been with ACG. I think I tried funding early last year, but I've had successfully passed the challenges. I think it was back end of last year, 2024. So at the moment, I'm funded 300K. I just had my third payout last week, and hopefully should be getting another couple in the next coming weeks as well.
Perfect. And then since you've been with ACG, what's your success rate been with challenges? Was it a slow start, or did you hit a home run straight away and manage to pass? Tell us about the process around that.
Yeah, sure. So I think with prop firms in general, I only came into the prop firm space probably about 2 years ago. And I didn't actually know about Alpha until I think it was about a year ago. But my first prop firm challenge was with another firm. I did actually pass that straight away, which maybe was a good thing, maybe it wasn't. But with Alpha, I think it's been about a year. I've definitely had my share of challenges failed. I think coming into the prop space and kind of adapting how I've traded and actually starting to see that it has got some long-term potential here as well. Definitely slowed things down a bit. So I've been funded the 300K for the last 3 or 4 months and trading it pretty slow. But prior to that, had my fair share of blown challenges and definitely had a few retakes in that time.
Yeah, nice. And even to hold on to your accounts for 3 to 4 months, that's still, a fairly long time. So you must be managing your risk fairly well. Did you drastically reduce your risk on your funded accounts versus the challenges?
Yeah, I think so. It's something that when I first got into the prop trading area, I jumped in very excited, kind of over leveraging, over risking, all the mistakes that everyone's made and you always hear about. But then I've started to realize actually there are serious firms out there that offer longer term potential, and if you can slow things down, hold on to your accounts, reduce the risk, who knows where it could turn. So I think for my funded accounts, I tend to keep the risk to 1% to 1.5% of overall risk. So usually that means I'm only trading one asset at a time. I only really trade US indices, so NASDAQ or S&P 500, occasionally Euro USD. So it's usually 1% or thereabouts.
Okay, cool. And then if we go back to the beginning, what was the motivation to start learning to trade it in the first place? Is this more of a side hustle along with your other jobs or 9 to 5, or is this your full-time gig?
Yeah, so it's a side hustle, I guess you could call it that. It depends which way around you want to put it. But I do have a full-time job. I work for a tech company. I head up the UK recruitment. But trading overall, if I think back to the very start, we're talking anything to do with trading or stocks. It's been 15, nearly 20 years, actually. I think it was when I was in university and I came across just regular stocks. It was kind of penny stocks at the time. There wasn't, this whole YouTube space and all the influencers and even the prop firms wasn't something that was really about. So I got into stock trading or stock market investing, I guess you could call it. That was on the back of, I think my dad at the time, he worked for a retail company and they were offering share save scheme. So they had the opportunity to buy shares, cash them out later without any risk. So that's where I first heard about, okay, what's all this? What's a share? Did some research. And then, ended up buying some shares, obviously not a very much amount, and did a bit of share dealing for a few years, had some wins, had some losses. And then, that eventually evolved into sort of spread betting or more conventional kind of prop trading more recently.
Okay. And how's it been with prop firms in general? Has it changed your mindset in regards to trading? Do you see more opportunity with prop firms versus trading your own capital?
Yeah, it's interesting actually, because I traded my own capital for the bulk of the time that I've been sort of interested in financial markets. And the prop space, I think I, as I say, only came across it a couple of years ago. And honestly, when I first come across props, I thought it was a scam. I thought this doesn't sound right. I'm seeing all these big numbers. It was very gamified when I looked at it. It kind of, bright colors, big imagery, all the flashing lights everywhere. So I genuinely didn't take it very seriously. I kind of thought, okay, what is this? Generally thought it was a scam. But then I got funded really quickly with another big prop straight away and got quite a large payout in the first week or two. And then I was like, oh, okay, so this is actually, if it was real, I was not expecting to get the money, genuinely wasn't. But then after that, I was like, okay. And then from there, I started looking into understanding more about the different firms and kind of delved into it much more since then.
Yeah, and do you have multiple accounts running at the same time, or do you just stick with one and then just leave the others? How do you manage multiple accounts?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I do have multiple accounts. I'm funded with a few other firms at the moment. I try not to have, hundreds and hundreds and loads because A, it's quite tough to manage. And B, you don't know, unfortunately in this space, there's companies that come and go and you don't always know who's going to stick around after you've worked so hard to get funded. But I have got over $1 million in funding across a couple of different firms at the minute. So I try and kind of trade broadly the same strategy across all of them.
And then with Alpha Capital Group, what's your total payout so far?
It's just over £20,000 at the moment. £25 or $1,000, not sure now. $20,000 or £20,000, one of them.
Yeah. I think it's dollars with ACG. Yes, $20,000. Yeah,
$20,000. Yeah.
And then in regards to, I think I mentioned this earlier, your motivation, your why. Is there a particular reason you started trading? Was it to buy a new car, just to increase your wealth? What's your why?
Yeah, no, I think if I look back to when I first got into trading, I guess it's my background really. I guess everyone's got kind of a sob story, but I grew up, pretty poor. Grew up in a sort of council estate, didn't have much of anything. When I come across and understood about shares and understood that, okay, this is a way that people can turn something into much more, it kind of snowballed from there. Just really started delving into understanding this whole financial space, realizing that, there is opportunity in trading, personal capital or with prop firms. And now it's something that's, it's a big part of my life at the moment. I take it pretty seriously. But overall it started from the desire, I guess, to just, generate significant income, for myself and my family, and, take it as far as it can go.
Yeah, and for people watching this, they may be asking, how do you trade with a full-time job and, other projects you have going on? So how do you juggle the two? Or, do you find, are you a day trader? Are you swing trading? How do you make trading fit around your lifestyle and your current 9 to 5?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I'm someone, I definitely don't want to be glued to the screen, scalped in and doing little ticks here and there. So my strategy is very much swing trading. I think one of the trades with Alpha that I got paid on, it probably was open for maybe 25, 30 days, something like that. So I much prefer to get something on, leave it, and just let it play out. At most, I'll do some intraday stuff if there's an opportunity. But as you say, the job I've got is also really demanding as well. So I can't afford to be, glued to the charts. So I tend to kind of set things up outside of work. set things up on the weekend, and then let it play out, and then, check it periodically here and there. But yeah, I'm not one that wants to be glued to the screen trying to look for, a couple of pips here and there.
Yeah, and it makes sense. There's always the misconception as well. People automatically think you make more day trading, but there's just as much opportunity swing trading. So are you on the higher timeframes, and what's your execution time frame?
Yeah, so for execution, I usually draw my zones on the sort of 4 hours, my preferred sort of time frame, 4 hour and up. I might dial in a bit lower to 1 hour, 2 hour, just to sort of refine an entry. But generally, I'd be happy with something in the 4 hour range. I'm not too worried. As I say, I'm trading mainly NASDAQ. I'm not worried about it being 5 points, 10 points up or down, because if I'm holding it for, at minimum a couple of days and, at most a month or so, then for me, something in the 4 hour range usually tends to work best.
And then this is something I personally would struggle with, is how do you sleep at night if you're holding trades overnight? Does it bother you at all? Do you have sleepless nights, or is it you just don't feel it anymore?
You know what? Generally, Pep, I don't. I'm absolutely sleep like a baby. I think I've had my share of over leveraging and having trades too big, and then I can't sleep. Mm-hmm. That was a long time ago, and those lessons had to be learnt. Yeah. But now, I need my sleep. So when my positions are not that big, there's never anything that can take me out unless there's some massive event, in which case there's probably worse problems to worry about. So yeah, no, it doesn't bother me overnight at all.
Yeah, no, good for you. And then before you took your first challenge, what you know now, what advice would you give yourself back then before you jumped into your first challenge?
Slow down, really slow down. Take the time, and even when you purchase the challenge, you can almost wait for a good setup before you jump into a challenge. You don't have to get a challenge. And what I used to do is I'll get a challenge, I'll be so eager to execute on it straight away. But what I've realized is that, my cliche as it is, sort of slower, more steady, tends to perform a lot better. So definitely slow down, risk less, the kind of stuff that I would recommend. Yeah.
Okay. What's been your biggest achievement so far in your trading career? Is it the milestone of passing your first challenge or your first payout? What's given you your biggest high so far?
That's a good question. I think it's before I entered the prop space, actually, I managed to build up some personal capital to a decent amount. Managed to help my family out, pay off the last bit of my parents' mortgage. That was probably what I was most happy about, I would say. And definitely, it's like my one of the first payouts from the prop space was a decent size as well. So yeah, I would say those are probably the things that I'm most happy with, or most stick in my mind, was what trading has done for me.
And then your journey in regards to becoming a profitable trader, what did that look like? Was that years in the making, finding your edge, a lot of trial and error, or did you have a mentor that gave you a ready-made strategy?
You know what? I think when I got into trading, investing, there wasn't much on YouTube. As there was nothing really. So I didn't have any mentor, didn't have any known resources. I actually read an old school textbook. I think the first book I read, it's called Technical Analysis for Dummies. It's a very basic book, but it gives information that's still true today. So I very much learned myself just through trial and error, and making lots and lots of mistakes. Understanding what works, what doesn't. I think nowadays more so, yes, there's a wealth of information online. You can really study and learn things if you don't understand. And despite YouTube being a sort of a bit of a mess sometimes, there are good people on there that do know what they're talking about. So it's a lot easier to get educated now. But I think with my trading journey, it was very much early days of kind of internet, realistically. And just I started initially with, like I say, the stocks, and then went into some of the old brokers, with some small amounts of personal capital. And it was very much just learn through error, and then try and refine it myself, really. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then what does a typical day in the life look for you, Josh? You wake up, are you checking the charts, or is that done the night before? Just take me through a typical day.
Yeah, no, I'd be lying if I say I don't check the charts a lot. I definitely do. I'll probably do it without even realizing it. Reflexes on the phone. Although I'm not kind of trading, I do check. I like to go to the gym. For me, that's helps with so many things, keeps me clear. So I do that first thing in the morning most of the time. If I can get there for 6, that's pretty good. But then I've got my job, so I'm at home for my job. 4 days a week maybe. Sometimes I'll go to the office once a week, once every other week. So that will take up the majority of my time. But then on evenings or weekends, I really enjoy reading about the market, reading the news, charting, listening to YouTubers. I enjoy immersing myself in all things to do with trading. I just really enjoy it. So on a typical day, I'm always doing something related to trading.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a continuous learning journey. I find trading, there's no perfect trader, is there? So you're always refining, optimizing, you're looking at ways to better yourself.
Yeah, no, exactly that. So I've done some back testing, done forward testing, and like you say, it's continual. So I'll still sometimes, lock myself away in a room for a day and test something or back test something or chart something new or, evaluate something that went wrong or went right. So yeah, for me, it's a daily thing, and it doesn't stop really. Yeah.
And how strict are you at logging individual trades? Do you log every single trade and then, take a look at, you're tracking emotions, the setup, what does logging a trade look like for you?
Yeah, to be honest, I never journaled at all. I only really started journaling about a year ago because actually I had a really bad spell about a year ago, and I said, okay, well, what am I not doing? So that's when I started journaling, and I realized some things, and I tracked religiously every single trade, entries, exits. Was it an A star, B, C level trade? Should I have been in it? Should I have stayed in it? Should I have exited earlier? All that kind of stuff. And I did find it really helpful. And I think that's what brought to light a lot of the fact that I was taking too many trades for prop trading. So now I journal lightly, but because I don't take that many trades in my funded accounts, it's not a lot of work anymore. But I do recommend definitely journaling, because I think a lot of the time you think you have a strategy, but do you really have a strategy? Because can you repeat it? Can you show that you've executed it 50 times and this is the outcome? If not, then you're probably working off a hunch. There's no perfect strategy, and there's elements of trading, and even now there are some levels of intuition from looking at the charts and doing it so long. But I'll definitely say journaling is a good idea, documenting what you're doing, especially if you're going through a rough patch. That's why was useful for me.
And is there a common mistake you consistently make, or is there a common mistake which you had to iron out? And, is that something that, you can let the audience know on, try not to do this or else X happens? What was something you struggled with in regards to some of your mistakes?
It was, I would say it sounds ridiculous, but it's making good money, but making it the bad way. So you can make money by over leveraging, and that's all well and good. But then trying to undo that, if that's something you've ran with for a long time and somehow you've been successful at doing that, it can trip you up in a bad way. And again, it's happened to me, and anyone that hasn't had the experience that is, I'd wonder if they've ever traded. So over leveraging is the one thing I would say. Reduce your leverage. And for me, actually, I think that's where the prop space actually genuinely helps traders with all the lot size limits, percentage limits on risk, and all these kind of things that, at first it seems quite sort of punitive and restrictive, but actually, if you're trying to do this on a long-term basis, that these things do help. So it kind of depends on your objectives, really. You know, if you want to turn up and kind of, kind of gamble on something, then yeah, you're losing high leverage, but you've got to ask yourself, are you trying to do this every time, every day, for months and years? Because if so, it's definitely not going to work. So if you want to do something that is sustainable and could generate, serious sort of income over a period of time, then you have to have something that you can repeat. And for me, that meant bringing the leverage down so that if I make a mistake or if it goes against me, which of course it's going to sometimes, then I'm still in the game. Whereas, there've been points where everything was kind of an all or nothing. And that's not helpful. Even if it goes your way, it's not the right thing.
Yeah, and some very good advice there. You got to have skin in the game. You got to come back to fight another day, and yeah, you can't do that if you're blowing accounts left, right, and centre. Yeah. And how's your experience been with Alpha Capital Group?
Yeah, really good. I like the fact that you guys know your rules are pretty clear, and they haven't changed the whole time I've been with you guys. Some prop firms you kind of always have to check the FAQ almost every day just to make sure you're not getting caught out by something. But it's been really clear, really smooth. No issues at all. Been paid, 3 times, which is always the litmus test. So yeah, it's been really good with you guys.
Good. Excellent to hear. And then do you mind giving us a 5-10 minute breakdown of just how you analyze the chart? Some setup you might be potentially looking at, or a past trade you've taken?
Yeah, sure. Let me
share the screen quickly.
So I'll just talk through, I guess, sort of in general, NASDAQ, which is what I look at the most. And to be honest, it's very, very simple technical analysis. There's a handful of things that I like to do. For me, sort of less is more. So what I'll always do initially, and I do this with NASDAQ and ES as well, or S&P, is I'll draw some very, very basic trend lines, which will stay on the chart. But I'll do them across all time frames from monthly to sort of 4 hours. So I'll have the monthly setup, which is like this. And as you can see, it's just catching the big bottoms and, potential tops. And then this channel here. So that's on your monthly. Then I'll break it down on a weekly basis. And you may see that things change a little bit because we zoomed in a bit more. So again, basic trend line analysis. So here are the bottoms, here are the tops. And is there any kind of other things going on in between on a weekly basis? I've also got some moving averages on there. So I look at the 20, mainly the 200 and the 50, but sometimes the 20 comes into play as well. And then beyond the weekly, we'll go to the daily, and it gets a bit busier here. But I'll try and point out a few things that I'm looking at. So again, with the daily trend line analysis, it's just catching anything that's pretty obvious. Where are the highs? Where are the parallel channels? Where are potential areas of support and resistance? As I mentioned, I tend to execute on the 4-hour chart. So I'll have the same thing done again, but on a 4-hour basis. So as you can see on this one here, there's this upwards diagonal trend line here, which is catching these bottoms, and there's some sort of significance here catching these tops. And you can see again going across here is catching these bottoms here. Now, that's one thing I look at. But what I like to do in addition to that, and this is what gives me my kind of entries, is I like to look at supply demand or liquidity areas. And I like to kind of keep it on the chart quite clean. So basically it's quite simple. What I'll do is I'll go and draw up key areas of liquidity, of buyers fighting sellers, and then, where the price breaks in one direction or another. And I'll mark it up on the whole chart going backwards. And I'll basically wait for price to reach that area, and then I'll execute. So for example, you can see one area up here, which was a very, very clean liquidity move, big move to the downside here. So boxed this area off and just waited for price to revisit, as it just about did here. And that produced this downwards move, which obviously has come all the way, but I wouldn't have sat in it as far as that. There's this area which we've got here as well now, and I've actually taken a long here. And the reason I took a long here was because, I've removed it from the chart now, but this area here was my liquidity, which was the reference point. So I said to myself, okay, what sort of confluence have I got? I've got a liquidity zone, which translates across to here. And I've also got a trend line area that also translates across. So it's kind of looking for confluence in an asset. So for me, when you look at this area, as I say, it hits liquidity and it hits the trend line. To me, that's a very strong reason to enter and look to the upside. In addition to that, I'd also look across the other US indices for more confluence. So it's a very similar task that I would do for the ES. Always on the futures market. I find that that's the most accurate, and that drives, all the corresponding CFD or broker prices on the back of it. So it's always on the futures market. And I'd again look for similar confluence. So as you can see, that same buy area that is here is also got reached in the ES, similar to the NASDAQ. And again, if you look at YM or Dow, again, I don't usually chart the Dow as much, but you'll probably see, this probably would be a liquidity area that maybe, I would say, drew some confluence there. So for me, it's a case of, okay, where are the high probability trades? Where is downside risk minimized, or where is it very clear that it's wrong?
Are your stops below? Do you have wide stops below structure, or are they just, or your stops maybe below 1 4-hour candle off your entry?
Yeah, no, exactly that, below structure. So for example, here, and I'm in this long at the minute.
Okay.
I think I would have entered somewhere possibly at the top of this structure here, but my stop will be all the way down here. Because then I'm saying, okay, if we reach somewhere like here, then that means this trend line has been violated, which we know so far has caught these, this and this, and it's trending in that direction. We say that trend line has been violated, and most importantly, the liquidity is gone. So we're heading much lower, possibly to this liquidity area down here, and this would be my next buy zone. So he's trying to make it as kind of mechanical as possible, which is that it's in the zone, so we buy. And if it falls beyond, X amount outside of it, then it's invalidated and we're wrong. So we move on. So I think...
Do you have risk to reward, or do you just monitor price action? And
yeah, for me, Pep, I think I tend to just monitor the price action, because I don't really think, don't get me wrong, 1 to 2 is obviously, you should be aiming for that as a minimum. But what I find is that, the structure will tell you when you should be anticipating a turnaround, and you want to get out before that. So sometimes you may be running for a 1 to 3 or 1 to 4, and sometimes you may be running for a 1 to 1. It's more the structure, the price action, the previous liquidity zones that I'm looking at. So
do you ever move stops to break even, or are you just happy to take the risk?
I do move to break even, but honestly, usually when I'm saying to myself that I'm going to be exiting the trade soon, because the way I see it is, if it goes back to my break even, unless something has fundamentally changed in the structure, or I see price heading back past the break even, I would end up re-entering the trade again. So a lot of the time I kind of leave the stop and say, let's see what's happening. If it's going back to my break even, and to me the structure looks the same, and I would be re-entering, then there's no point in me exiting just to jump back in. So most of the time I'll tend to close the trade before I need to adjust my stop loss.
Yeah, and it sounds like what you said earlier, you're managing your risk fairly well. So, worst case scenario, you take the hit and lose a trade, it's not going to bankrupt you at all.
Yeah, no, exactly that. So on a trade like this, I'm risking 1 to 1.5%, and that might be the only trade that I take this week, potentially. Sometimes I might take more than one trade, 1 or 2 trades a day, but then, it's never really more than 1 or 2 a week or so. So yeah, it's never gonna hopefully wipe me out.
Yeah, nice. Really interesting strategy. I mean, super clean, really simple. I think it just goes to show you don't have to overcomplicate trading. I know you've got a lot going on in the chart, but in regards to the approach and the strategy, it's pretty, like you said, technical analysis 101, trend lines across multiple different timeframes, additional confluences. So yeah, mate, impressive stuff there.
Cheers. Yeah, I used to use some indicators and stuff like that, but yeah, for me, I just think, the less is more for me.
Mm-hmm. And do you use the alpha community at all, or you more just go at it alone, or just bounce ideas off other traders, off other communities?
No, to be honest, I don't. I'm not even on Discord. I'm barely on social media. I don't. It's interesting. I don't really like talking about trading that much, which is interesting. So I guess this is changing a bit for me. I mean, my close friends though, my close friends know that I trade. But everyone loves talking about trading, and everyone has got this idea, and everyone's doing this and doing that. And I tend to stay away from most of that, to be honest with you.
Okay, makes sense. And then, do you have any goals for 2025? Any particular milestones you're looking to hit?
That was good. That was a good one. Just continue trying to get more funding. To be honest with you, just keep that number going up. As far as it can go in firms that are legitimate, that I can trust, and kind of just see how far it goes from that. I mean, you guys, and this is interesting actually. I saw your post recently about Alpha Prime, which is in my mind, this is now why the prop space is so much more. I take it so much more seriously now, because companies are saying, there's opportunities that you can actually prove yourself. So, to me, those kind of things make me want to refine my approach even more. Mm-hmm. So it's that really, just making sure that the trajectory I've started on, especially this year, just stay that way. Yeah.
Okay. And then you've probably touched on a few of these already, but what are your top 3 tips for anyone getting into this space?
Yeah, definitely the over-leveraging thing. The second thing I would say is you've got to de-gamify or ungamify, whatever the phrase might be, the prop trading space. The talk of challenges and resets and just the language of it. It kind of, I noticed it when I came into it. It just felt like I was on a game or something. It wasn't I didn't take it seriously, and you really have to realize, this is serious stuff. I'll say reduce your leverage, kill the gambler inside of you. I mean, thirdly, I would say, make sure you actually have a strategy. If you think you have a strategy and you're worried about your psychology, then you probably don't have a strategy. So that was what I would probably say. Work on a strategy until, you can execute it. And you could give it to someone else to execute, then you have a strategy. If you don't have that, then I would say back test, forward test, buy the smallest account you can find, and test it in the live market until you know that you can sort of rely on it.
Okay, excellent. And then, any closing remarks? Anything else to add?
No, it's been good. Yeah, it's all good stuff with Alpha. Like I say, so exciting stuff that I've seen on your guys' Instagram and so on. So, fingers crossed, stick around and it all goes well.
Yeah. Hopefully you'll get to 50K's worth of payouts, 100K.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, Josh, I appreciate you doing the interview. As I've seen and as I mentioned, you've got a solid approach, solid strategy. A real role model to people people getting into this space. So, appreciate you taking the time to do this interview, and I wish you the best of luck for the rest of 2025.
Nice one. Thanks, Pep. Appreciate it.